Welcome back. We're kind of rolling into the end of the year here. So, Quint, kind of give us an update on what's going on in the markets.
Well, first of all, how are you with your new watch
Oh,
that you
fantastic.
got from
My
Miss
Christmas
Hannah?
present. Yeah.
Miss Hannah, the girlfriend.
The girlfriend. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
this is pretty serious.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic.
I love it.
It's a
Fancy.
beautiful watch.
Mhm.
Very nice.
I feel like a professional now.
You look like a professional. You know what they say a real professional is? Someone from out of town who carries a briefcase.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
So end of the year. No, there's not that much going on right now. You know, we had some volatility surrounding Omicron. We put a newsletter out to the folks talking about how, from our view and our vantage point, not much had changed. And if, in fact, the market had continued to stumble, there might have been some pretty decent opportunities. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. We had a 1 or 2 day sell-off, and the market rebounded very quickly. But I don't think that is going to influence a change in policy or the economics of what's happening with, the reopening. There's obviously some bumps in the road. But the reality is that the real news, in my opinion, that took a back seat this week, and I believe we'll be talking about it a lot into the coming year, is the part 2 and 3 of the infrastructure plan. So if you remember back, a year, 6 months ago, whatever it was, when Biden administration rolled out the infrastructure plan, it was a massive package, really comprised of 3 different things: infrastructure, stimulus, and a boosting of social programs. They had to separate that. Right? There was some rationale behind that. I don't think that the Democrats liked the way the outcomes transpired in some of the states that they thought might, vote Democrat. And we have some Republican governors in those states in a very close race that transpired in New Jersey. So they took a step back and they reworked that and they passed the infrastructure plan, all intents and purposes. That was great. And a lot of people I think don't realize that was money that had already been sort of appropriated elsewhere. So they used a lot of that money that had been appropriated elsewhere for the programs inside the infrastructure plan. Now, however, they're trying to pass the second and third, kind of now mashed together, more of a stimulus, social programs, etc. And interestingly enough, and you know this, we talked about this ad nauseum here in the office, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, the lone Democrat who basically said, I'm not voting for this. And it did not get through. And so that didn't cause as much of a riff in the market. Goldman Sachs came out. They downgraded their GDP forecast for next year. Markets, I think, were a little, up and down about what was going to happen there. But I think that the markets have really said that's a next year thing. And this year we were more concerned at the end about Omicron, the Fed tapering, etc. Now, all that to say, even though as we roll into the end of the year, it's really nice not to have a lot of craziness transpiring. We have a week left, right?
Yeah.
Anything's
There's
possible.
still time.
But as we roll into 2022, there's a lot of things that are on the docket, per se, that are going to require a lot of attention. And I would say, in order of importance, I would say the first is the Fed and what's going to transpire there. They're going to continue to taper. That means removing liquidity from the economy, the markets. The market has become very beholden to this liquidity. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. They've also announced they're targeting 3 interest rate hikes for 2022. I don't think that. I would be shocked if we're doing this in a year from now and we actually got that. I'd be shocked with 1, but I don't think that's going to happen. We'll see, but that's what they've targeted. Also the same folks who said inflation was transparent or transient. So it's transparent for sure, but transient, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
That's the first. Second thing is going to be this dialogue about Build Back Better.
Which is that part 2 and 3 that you mentioned.
Yeah, and the reason that's a big deal is it is infused with a lot of tax changes. So that's going to be on the forefront of what's happening with the tax, code going into 2022 and 2023. And a lot of those are going to try to be retroactive. So there's going to be some concern there. And then, again, I think that the following is going to be just additional variants and how we're handling the COVID. Of course, throw in any number of other ancillary things, right? The tension between China and Taiwan. Russia is moving troops to the border of the Ukraine. I saw recently. So a million other things that could transpire. I think from our vantage point, one of the things, as you know, we had a dialogue about it this morning. We're considering reducing some risk across the board. We kind of make trim changes and make alterations here and there to try to take risk off when we see that there's some concern, add some risk when we see there's opportunity. I'm starting to become a little bit more concerned about 2022 and the volatility that we'll see. We'll take it a day at a time. So that's what's going on.
So whenever you're talking about taking off risk, what does that actually look like as far as someone that's in our portfolios? So if someone is 70% invested in stocks, 30% invested in bonds, how are we taking off risk? What does that look like?
So great question. First is we look at it from a global scale. So, I don't look at my account or your account or my mother's account or client A, B, or C. We look, as you know, at the global equity exposure that our firm has. So we always consider that, hey, we have this portfolio, and let's just say, for example, we have 10% invested in large caps or small caps or mid caps or whatever it may be. If that's an area that we say our exposure looks a little high, let's reduce that. That's the first thing, because we always want to be evaluating the market. We always want to be evaluating the asset class. We always want to be evaluating it based on that, not yours, mine. And it ultimately flows down into everybody's individual account allocation, diversification, et cetera, no question. But first, it's a global view. Then, when we make that decision to reduce or add, we then do it, and it pro rata sort of goes out among all the clients. So, for example, my account would be aggressive. I don't own bonds. So if I had a 10% position in an investment and we decided to cut it, my portion would be 5%. I would reduce 5%. So we do that across the board. Very scalable, efficient, and easy way to do that. The thing that we have to take into consideration at times is, timing. Is it good time at the end of the year? Do we want to realize those tax gains for certain people? Do we not? Et cetera. So it becomes a little tricky. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to stare at 2022 and say, hey, we see some concern here and do nothing. That it's always easier to re-enter than it is to go, oh, I wish I would have reduced. So that's something that we're looking at here into the end of the year. And again, selfish plug, but I think that's what makes us a little bit different. This isn't a memo we got from some home office in New York City saying, hey, we are reduced. No, this is what we're deciding. This is what we're taking into consideration for our clients.
All right, last question for you. We're rolling into the end of the year, the start of the new year. What can the folks out there do as we approach this time?
So this is huge. We're going to be talking about this more, and I want to speak to our clients because I know a lot of you are our clients. A lot of this is going to be viewed by people who aren't our clients. So I'll take this with, into your own consideration. You have to have a plan, okay? Now, I don't mean a plan like, oh, what am I doing in 5 years? No, physically, we do planning in our office. If there's one thing that we do as much or more of as analyzing the investment world, it's our planning department. Daniel, runs the planning department. He's a fantastic job at that. I would encourage every single one of our clients to make sure that we are on the trajectory and we have a physical plan in place that talks about what's the retirement goals, what's the distribution strategy, tax strategies, allocation, diversification, what's the required rate of return, et cetera. Because after 12 years now of markets that have risen on average, we could have some volatility. It's easier to go through that volatility when you know you have a plan and you have the ability to weather short to intermediate term bumps in the road.
Excellent.
That's what's important. Not just the end of the year, but as we go into 2022, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I want to flip the table a little bit because
Okay.
I had somebody who said, who's that young guy on there with you? Even though you've been here now for over a year, I want you to introduce yourself to the folks. People still don't know who you are, which is mind-boggling to me because you've been here for a while.
I mean, I feel like I've met quite a few of you, but my name's Logan. I joined the firm about a year ago, a little over a year ago. I was actually a student of Quint's back in the day. Went off to GE Aviation for a while, worked in some the financial management program there. Realized quickly I didn't want to look at spreadsheets all day, every day. I wanted to talk with you all. I wanted to get on
And now
and
you look at
interact with
spreadsheets
people.
most of the day.
I look at spreadsheets most of the day, but then I also get to interact with
Different
people on a
spreadsheets,
regular
though.
basis. Exactly.
They actually have
it's
impact.
the type of
Yeah.
spreadsheets that matters.
Sure,
It really is.
Sure.
But been here for about a year. I work directly with you, kind of as an extension of yourself. I work a lot with Daniel in the planning department to help with these kind of financial plans. And I love digging into people's different financial information and doing this education stuff that we love to do as well.
I don't want Logan to get too big of a head, but one of certainly the brightest individuals I've ever met. He's a fine addition to our team. If you haven't yet had an opportunity to meet Logan, next time you call our office or we talk with you, make sure you reach out and he'll be doing the same. So welcome to the firm.
Thank you. I'm glad to finally be here. This is fantastic. And for everybody out there, we just want to say happy holidays. Enjoy the end of this year. It's been a great 2021. I mean, there's been obviously a lot of stuff that's happened in this year, but we just appreciate all of you out there and hope you have a great rest of your year.
I can't say anything different. Thank you all. Make it a great day. Make it a great year.